And I'm kind of facing this way. If you want, yeah. You can go kind of in where you were before his screen. Just slide this way because you can't that forward. Yes. Yes, exactly. There you go. Thank you everyone for coming. And thank you to everyone who can't be here with us at the cemetery but has tuned in to the broadcast of this service. We are here today to honor Murray Cox, the son of Charles and Gladys Cox of blessed memory. We are here to honor him and to celebrate him in his life. We are here to show him the ultimate respect of accompanying him to his final resting place. And we are here as family, friends, and a community to say goodbye. Murray passed away Wednesday, the 8th day in November. He was 82. We are here in a portion of the Shaarey Cemetery known as the Shaarey Shamayim Cemetery, an interfaith cemetery where non-Jewish and Jewish partners can be buried side by side. Our service is not a Jewish service per se. It is more non-denominational, but inspired by Jewish practices in mourning and grieving, such as having a burial very quickly after death, and having a service officiated by me, Matthew Leibel, a rabbi. It's an honor to be here. Though I did not know Murray, I've come to know him through meeting with his family, hearing stories, and I consider this a true honor and privilege to be with all of you as we show him this ultimate form of loving kindness, chesed, and respect, kavod. In Jewish practice, we start cemetery services, funeral services, with the chanting of psalms, words that are thousands of years old, words of tradition that link the soul of our beloved with the eternity of God. A popular selection is the 23rd Psalm, which I will read now. A Psalm of David. God is my shepherd, I shall not want. God makes me lie down in green pastures, leads me beside the still waters, and restores my soul. Guides me in straight paths, for that is God's nature. Though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I fear no evil, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. You prepare a table, a banquet for me, in the presence of my foes. You anoint my head with oil, my cup overflows. Surely goodness and loving kindness shall follow me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of God forever. One other selection of the Psalms that I find particularly appropriate in these times is Psalm 121, known in Hebrew as Shir LaMa'alot, a song for those who ascend. I turn my eyes to the mountains. From where will my help come? My help comes from God, maker of heaven and earth. God will not let your foot give way, your guardian will not slumber. You see, the guardian of Israel neither slumbers nor sleeps. God is your protection, your guardian at your right hand. By day the sun will not strike you, nor the moon by night. God will guard you from all harm. God will guard your life. God will guard your going and coming now and forever. It is our collective prayer and hope. May Murray go unto God in peace. Murray is survived by his family, his wife of 31 years, Esther, his children and their partners, Nancy and Tim, Harvey and Christina, his grandchildren and their partners, Brett and Kristen, Casey and Hannah, Gordon and Laura, Mason, and his great-granddaughter, Laramie Lynn, as well his sister Helen and his sisters-in-law Maxine and Lois. The family also told me, and I would like to acknowledge on their behalf, his special nieces, Sharon and Joyce, and their families. I'm told Murray was very close with them. Murray, as we'll discuss in a moment, was quite a bit younger than his siblings. Maybe a surprise. And so he was very close in age to these nieces and spent a lot of time together, they did, in summers when they were younger. So a special acknowledgement to them, as well as all other family members, cousins, nephews, nieces, and friends. Murray was predeceased by his parents, Charles and Gladys, as well as by his brothers. Melvin, who died in service during World War II just a few weeks before the end of the war, whom Murray never knew, and by his brother, Harold, as well, all of blessed memory. In a moment, we will hear eulogies from Murray's daughter Nancy and son Harvey, as well as from Gordon on behalf of the grandchildren. By way of introduction, I can offer that I found it very interesting when I met and chatted with the family to get to know Murray through them, that Esther was quite insistent on me saying that if I said how old Murray was at any point, that I would say he was 82 years young. She stressed this. The phrasing was very important, I learned, because this idea of being young, not old, was part of who Murray was. In fact, as Tim said towards the end of our conversation, any stereotype you might have in your mind about someone who would be 80 or someone who would struggle with COPD or be in the hospital in and out over the last few months, he defied all of these classifications, these stereotypes, starting with the idea that he was 82 years young, someone who had youthful energy and someone who was truly young at heart. Murray was born in St. Rose, Manitoba. As we said, a much younger brother to his three older siblings. He moved with his family to Winnipeg when he was young, and they settled in West Kildonan. He was a graduate of West Kildonan Collegiate. A jack of all trades, who had tremendous talent and skill working with his hands, he worked in a few different jobs, mainly for the municipality of West St. Paul, before eventually finding his career, 25 years of service working in maintenance and as a custodian with the Seven Oaks School Division. It was through this job that he met Esther, a teacher at James Nisbet Community School. They started dating after he left the school and moved on to another job in the school division. Murray took great pride in these skills and the work he did, often things he did around his home: painting, gardening, fencing off enclosures for the dogs, painting other people's homes, even cutting the grass, which is no small task when you own 1.25 acres in St. Andrews. Murray was a quiet man. You may even call him shy. He was quite content to sit in the background and watch other people, very uncontent or incontent to be the center of attention, never wanting anything for himself, a picture of selflessness. And yet he was also very welcoming. He was sociable and genuinely took the time to get to know others and to listen. A laid-back, easygoing guy, he provided a perfect balancing act for Esther and their relationship, making her laugh every day with the sense of humor his family will certainly talk about in a few moments, going on trips, including one notable, very special trip overseas to mark the 70th liberation of the Netherlands and to see his brother Melvin's grave. His laid-back attitude could only really be threatened when several days of prolonged rain prevented him from cutting his own grass on time. But it was also probably why he loved baseball so much, though he didn't discriminate and was a true lover of all sports, playing many sports as a kid, later coaching his own kids. One of the last things he said was to predict last night's Blue Bombers' victory over the BC Lions in the Western Final. He was extremely patient, maybe even to a fault, and things that would upset most people just rolled off of his back. At the same time, he was quick to stand up for others and lend his voice of support when they were in need. He'll be remembered for so many of the great qualities he embodied throughout his life, qualities he's passed on to his children and to his grandchildren. And for little things, like the fact that if you didn't arrive somewhere 10 to 15 minutes early, you were late, which is why I got here 10 to 15 minutes early today. Of everything that Murray celebrated in his life, and he had much to celebrate, his greatest joy was his family, his children and his grandchildren. As Esther said when we met together, you could hear it in his voice, the pride and the love he had for them when he would speak of them, what they were up to, their accomplishments. I'm honored to give these introductory remarks, but more honored now to turn things over to his kids and grandkids, beginning with his grandson Gordon, for what we call in Hebrew the hesped, the eulogy portion of this service.
I want to start by thanking you all for coming. I'm sure Grandpa Murray would have appreciated it. My name is Gordon and I will be speaking on behalf of the grandchildren. We're all lucky to have had Grandpa in our lives for as long as we did. He was there to teach us a lot, whether it was during family dinners in St. Andrews over a boon cake dessert or a seemingly bottomless cup of coffee. He taught me how to paint, and is still the only reason I know you need to tape the walls before painting them. Mason will never forget going to Gold Ice games with Grandpa, and their check-ins on how the Bombers and Jets were doing. Grandpa also spent so much time teaching us how to golf. The first lesson Brett ever learned from Grandpa was you're not supposed to tee the ball up in the fairway. Grandpa was always there to ask what's new, and hand us an egg carton full of golf balls he'd collected, only for us to shoot them right back where he found them within the week. Thank you, Grandpa, for the lessons and memories. We love you, and we miss you.
Good morning, everyone. I just want to echo what Gordy said. Thank you, everyone, for coming today. Very much appreciated to, say goodbye to my father. Is that better? Okay. So this is for my dad, Murray. I first kind of heard that my dad was going to pass last week while I was shopping with my partner, Christina, back in Calgary. So it was a little bit difficult news, of course, to bear, and I said my goodbyes over FaceTime, and we kind of finish up and get to the car and drive home, and then as I was driving home, I just felt very empty. It was like this void that I haven't felt really ever before. You lose some people, but to lose a father is a different story. So what I did when I was driving home was I was just trying to think about why I feel so bad and what my dad would actually want me to do to make myself feel better. So I started thinking about all the things that I enjoyed with my father and with my, through the years and so forth. And I thought I could actually just share what I was thinking at those moments for this speech. It was very applicable. So to cheer myself up, I thought of all those things. And the first thing, of course, as alluded to, was my dad's sense of humor. He was a comedian at heart. He had a very good sense of humor. He was a master at dropping subtle or sarcastic punchlines, but with absolute perfect timing. So he could have been a comedian, literally. I think he also, in part with a sense of humor, he very much embraced the lighter side of life, which was a really nice trait to have. He was very good at cheering you up if you were having a bad day or if you're going through a hard time. You could talk about anything, which was nice. And because he was so laid back, he literally made everyone feel very welcome. I know Christina can't be here today, but she had mentioned that she was so nice to get to know her so quickly, and is a very gentle person, which is nice. My dad was also a coach and a mentor. He taught me many, many things. Sometimes when I was young and I didn't really think I was learning, but I actually was. And, he also, as Rabah Matthew alluded to, was a big sports fan. He coached myself and Nancy our baseball teams, which is nice. He liked watching sports too. We watched the Blue Jays, a lot of Blue Jays. My dad was very kind. He used to take me to all the Winnipeg Jets games. Of course, I'm sure at my age, this was actually the first Jets team back at the old Winnipeg Arena. But he was also very generous. He'd always buy me the pamphlets for the game and some sports gear. So it was always really fun for me, and my dad always made sure that it was a nice experience for me, which is nice. He was also very much a handyman, and in this regard, he held very high standards and quality in his craftsmanship, which was really nice. I remember watching him, and I say semi-helping him when he built our shed in the backyard back in Mannerly Way. He always told me what step he was doing, explained why he was doing what he was doing. He made sure that I understood what all the tools were doing and so forth. So it was a very thorough, teachings for me, which is great. He just made sure that I ingested all the details, and I didn't really think I was at the time, but it really helped later on with me, which is great. He also paid a lot of attention to detail, maybe sometimes too much. For example, I think he repainted our house in Mannerly probably once every 3 years, which is probably just a little more frequent than other people in the block. But the nice thing is, we really had probably the best, shiniest house on the block, which is great. And like Gordy was saying, I learned to paint because of my dad, which is really good too. But basically, not just through me, as he was such a good handyman, he really transferred his skills to many people. My nephews, my mom, Esther, Nancy, and Tim. So, his legacy really lives on, even though he's left us today, which is nice. He was also very patient, very, very patient. When he was teaching me when I was younger, I was probably borderline ADH for my attention on details, but he held in there with me, which is really great. He kept showing me things, and even though I probably wasn't as attentive as I could have been at the time, he persevered, and it was worthwhile for me for sure. So my family and I are blessed in the fact that my dad's teachings through instruction and also leading by example, taught us many things. And we take these things, on our next journeys. So he's still with us in many ways, which is nice. It also taught me to take very good care of my efforts. So with his attention to detail, it really became part of me. And so much so, when I first moved into my townhouse 2 years ago, I literally spent 45 minutes on one cut on one of the laminate flooring pieces on my stairs. Recutting, walking back and down the stairs. And I was thinking of my dad the whole time, and he's probably giving me the thumbs up. So you never get to see my stairs, but I'm sure he would have been impressed with my craftsmanship there. But that wouldn't have been happening without my lessons from my dad as I was, growing up with him. It wasn't just in his craftsmanship, but he was also, very disciplined in everything that he did. And I think part of that discipline, was handed off to me. When I was quite young, I used to actually like sitting downstairs with my dad in our basement at his desk, and he was actually doing his bills. And I guess my numbers person was coming out of me, but I used to really like sitting with him while he was doing this. And I kept asking him question after question, why are we doing this? Why are we doing this? So it's not the young person with all the why questions, but he, answered all my questions, taught me, why it's so important to, pay your bills, pay the mortgage, pay the car bills, just make sure that you're basically supporting your family with your bills. And it's interesting because, it's a different world these days. I think back then he was really just, signing all the checks and sending everything off by mail to everyone. But I literally think about my dad when I'm doing my bills with telephone banking or internet banking. That's, that's part of me in terms of why I'm so disciplined, and I'm in a finance world. That maybe that's partially why too. So, a lot of things that my dad has done has carried over into me, even though I've been away, and I've never really felt like I was apart. So overall, I just want to say my dad was, a great teacher, a great provider, a great guardian, a comedian, which everyone probably knows and have seen, and in many ways a friend, which is what you really want. A parent, you can't really go wrong. So that was good. But I say that overall, as a parent and a person, he set the bar really high. So I'm really going to miss him. And he gave my sister, my family, my nephews, my friends, Esther, my mom, an amazing foundation to succeed in life. So I'm very grateful. I just want to say thanks for being a great dad and a great person. And that's everything. So again, thanks for everyone, being here today. For my father, much appreciated.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us here this morning. I'm Nancy Murray's daughter, and in these precious few moments we have together, I want to share with you things that make my dad the amazing man he was. My dad was kind. My dad was humble. He was always positive and never had a bad thing to say about anybody. My dad loved and cared about his wife Esther, his children and grandchildren. And although he never met his great-granddaughter, Laramie Lynn, we will make sure she knows how much he loved her and his amazing strengths. My dad was the definition of chill and laid back before anyone knew what those things meant. We often said, and will continue to say, when life gets tough, we need to channel our inner Grandpa Murray, and everything will be all right. He loved golf. At family get-togethers, we would often talk about the details of the latest round at South Interlake, or maybe not, depending on how it went that day. He loved those times with Esther on the course. He loved to travel. Road trips when we were kids, and more exotic destinations with Esther later. He loved his house, his yard, and his garden. He took such pride in making sure things were done just right. You better darn well have more than a half a tank of gas in your car at all times during the winter months, or you're going to hear about it, in a kind manner, of course. He loved to play crib. Literally hours after being rushed to hospital, unable to breathe, he was up, double skunking me and counting the hands faster than I ever could. Before I end my speech, there are a few words that Esther wanted me to say on her behalf. So these are Esther's words. Murray didn't want to get rid of things unless he could pass them along to someone in the family. I think he did that just in case he might want to use it sometime. And actually, if I might use my words now and say, I might add that I was borrowing his painting equipment, and he said, keep it. I know where it'll be if I ever need it. So you're right, Esther. He does pass them along to family members. And then Esther goes on to say, when asked if he ever wanted to get rid of items elsewhere, his response is always, not just yet. I might need it, or it may come in handy someday. When he was a custodian at various schools and a student was repeatedly asked to leave the room, the principal would assign the student to help Murray with odd jobs, for example, the lunch garbage run. I always wondered if some of these students acted out on purpose just to spend more time with Murray. He is so easy to talk about because he was so well liked. He was my better half, and he made me a better person. Thank you, Esther, for those words of love. Okay. He fought his COPD battle hard, and even in his final hours and days, he fought through the pain and fear with strength, will, and determination that defined his amazing life. He will be missed, but he will live on through his children, his grandchildren, and his great-grandchildren. I love you, Dad.
Thank you so much to Gordon and to Harvey and to Nancy for those beautiful words of eulogy and tribute to your grandfather, to your dad, to someone well deserving. The idea of passing on the tools and inspired me and reminded me of a teaching in Jewish tradition that I like to share before we turn to the conclusion of our service. The conclusion is, first we will read something in Hebrew called the Mourner's Kaddish, a prayer that in Jewish tradition is most comparable to the Lord's Prayer. It's a prayer that we say at funerals, and we say on the anniversaries of our loved ones' death. Also, when families are thrust into mourning, it's a prayer that as many times as 3 times a day the family turns to for up to a year in dealing with that first year of loss. After the recitation of the Kaddish, the family will lead us, and then everyone is invited to participate in the closing ritual of shoveling earth into the grave. As you can see, there is a large pile of earth here with several shovels set up so that after the family begins, people can come from both directions and line up. This is an extension of what we talked about at the beginning. In Jewish tradition, we come together as a community to bury our loved ones using our own hands. Kind, knowing, sorrowful hands, hands that once held their hands. It's our way of showing the respect, the ultimate respect, and taking care of our loved one until, quite literally, the very end. There are many different customs when it comes to the shoveling. Most people pour 3 shovels of earth. Some people use the front of the shovel, some people use the back of the shovel. Some people will pass the shovel to the next person in line. Some people will, as if reluctant to pass on what feels sometimes like a burden, return the shovel to the earth. If you've seen a custom before, or whatever explanation resonates with you is the custom that you should adopt. And for anyone who wants to participate in this action, but is maybe worried about the size of the shovel, you may not be able to see it where you are, but where I'm pointing right here, there's a pail, a small pail with a small shovel in it and sand, so that everyone can participate in this. It's what we call in Jewish tradition a mitzvah, a commandment, but also a selfless act we do without any hope of any reward for someone who clearly meant so much to many people. That's what we remind ourselves, because it can be a painful act, but it is one born of love and compassion. So that's how we'll conclude in a moment with the Kaddish recitation, and then the family leading us and everyone joining in if you're comfortable in the shoveling of the earth. But the teaching I wanted to share in conclusion is based on a line in the book of Proverbs, in the Bible, in the Old Testament. The line is, the human spirit is the light of God. Within each of us, God implants a divine spark. Each of us has the obligation to tend this spark and fan it into a flame that will light up one's own life and the lives of others. A lit candle can be snuffed out, or it can burn out, or it can kindle other candles. When the flame is passed on to others, the flame will continue to burn long after the original candle has been extinguished. In the words of Job, God has given, God has taken, blessed be the name of God. May Murray Cox and his memory be a blessing, as we mark that his essence will never leave our hearts and our souls. The Mourner's Kaddish. Yitkadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabah, be'alma divra chirutei v'yamlich malchutei, v'chayechon uv'yomechon uv'chayei dechol beit Yisrael, ba'agala uvizman kariv v'imru amen. Yehi shmei Rabah mevorach le'alam u'lalmei almaya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh. V'yitadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal shemei dekudsha b'richu. Le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata tushbechata v'nechemata da'amiran be'alma v'imru amen. Yehi shlama Rabah min Shemaya v'chayim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Oseh shalom bimromav hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. May the one who creates peace and harmony on high bring peace and harmony to us, to all Israel, and to all humanity, as again we say amen. Just before the family leads us in the shoveling of earth, I want to again thank everyone for tuning in and thank everyone for being here with us at the cemetery, for joining your hearts together with those of Murray's loved ones to give them courage and strength during this difficult time. After our service, I encourage you to continue to visit with each other and share stories, but there will be a meal of consolation, another staple of Jewish tradition, where we can continue to share stories, memories, and talk about the ways in which Murray has inspired us. The meal will be held after this service at Esther and Murray's home, 44 Parkview Road in St. Andrews, Manitoba. This is the same place where the family will be receiving visitors for a period of Shiva, the Jewish tradition of visiting family members who are in grief and mourning, going to them, often bringing more food than they can usually handle for the course of the week. So if you're thinking about what to bring, you can bring whatever you like, but that's the very Jewish style, so just overload them with lots of food. It's true. The Shiva will be taking place again at 44 Parkview Road in St. Andrews in the afternoons and in the evening, from Monday through to Friday. Monday to Thursday, 2 to 4 in the afternoon and 7 to 9 in the evening. That's Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. And then on Friday, the final day, just in the afternoon from 2 to 4. The Shiva doesn't continue when Shabbat, the Sabbath, begins on Friday evening. So again, Monday through Thursday, 2 to 4 and 7 to 9. And as well on Friday, 2 to 4, you can go and visit with the family at Esther and Murray's home. To the family, as they prepare to shovel, I say these words of Jewish tradition. In Hebrew, Hamakom yenachem etchem betoch sha'arav elei Tzion v'Yerushalayim. The translation, may you be comforted and consoled among all those who are or who have ever been in mourning. Thank you again to everyone for being here. I invite the family to lead us.